I want to talk to you about real generosity this morning. And I know this, that when the pastor starts talking about money, people get uncomfortable. You know why? I'll tell you why. Because there's a lot of misunderstandings about money and generosity. When my pastor starts talking about money and generosity, I don't feel uncomfortable. Why? Because it's God's truth. God has given me understanding about money and generosity. So what's my problem? I don't have one. What I have, if I start complaining about pastor talking about money, then that means God is not the problem, it's me. It's my heart. My heart is the problem. And so, but do you know that that the Bible talks about money so much? And there's about 2,300 verses on money, wealth, and possessions. 2,300 verses. And then Jesus spoke about money about 15% of his preaching. 15%. And then 11 out of 39 parables, he spoke about money. So it seems like money is important to God. And then we get so uncomfortable because there's a lot of misunderstandings about money. Now, look at me. And so I got a dime and a penny in my hand. A dime and a penny. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look at you, and I know that you are here. You are present. You are here. I see you. But when I start putting this close to my eyes, what happens? I don't get to see you. Because all I see is this metal. Then if I have this right directly on my eyes, could I say you're not here? Could I say you don't exist? Or that you're not present? But that's not true. The fact is, you are here. But I just got this covering my eyes. But here's what we know. That a lot of us people, here's what's happening. We see money and it covers our eyes, and we stop seeing God, the reality of God, the commands of God, and the needs of people, because it's covering our eyes. Because when you start doing this, that means not only that you are being deceived, the problem now is that you're focusing on this instead of focusing on God. Now you're going to act as if you are the owner instead of just a manager. John Wendell's and his 6 other siblings, their parents left them a significant amount of money as an inheritance. John and the whole entire siblings, and John and the sisters, were the most miserable, stingy people ever lived in this planet Earth. They had this, and they couldn't see God, and they could not see the needs of people. They just kept everything to themselves. John was able to convince the rest of his sisters to not buy anything. Our goal is to keep this money to ourselves. The last sister died, and the story tells us that they had an amount of $100 million. And then they found out that the whole entire, John and the siblings, the whole entire siblings lived in one house for 50 years. And they found out that the last sister who survived only had one dress that she wore every single day. The most miserable, stingy people ever lived because of this. Look at this passage that we're going to look at. In the book of Mark chapter 12, because there's a lot of misunderstandings about money and generosity, I just want to teach you so that the misunderstandings, our misunderstandings, would be taken care of. In the book of Mark chapter 12, verses 41 and 44, Jesus is talking about the giving of two groups. One, the rich, the giving of the rich, and one, the giving of the widow. Jesus sat down opposite the place where the offerings were put and watched the crowd putting their money into the temple treasury. Many rich people threw in large amounts. Now, I'm going to pause for a moment. Rich people were throwing what? Large amounts. And so, how easy is it for us to be impressed when people, the rich, start giving a large amount of money? And so we say, oh man, that's $2,000. Oh man, that's a lot of money. And we get so impressed. And then we see people in comparison to the rich who gave $2,000 to the one who gave the penny, and we say, what is that? That's just a penny. And Jesus wanted to change their understanding because they are misunderstanding what generosity is all about. We think that generosity has something to do with the amount of money, of how much money they put in. But Jesus is saying that's not how God looks at generosity. Now look. Calling his disciples to him, Jesus said, truly I tell you, this poor widow has put more into the treasury than all the others. Wait. What are you saying, Jesus? I mean, that doesn't make sense. The guy put in $2,000 and she only put 2 pennies. What do you mean that she gave more? That doesn't make sense. That's why I'm telling you, because you have a lot of misunderstandings when it comes to generosity. Look, the rich all gave out of their wealth. But she, the widow, out of her poverty, put in everything, all she had to live on. Whoa. So the widow gave everything. And Jesus was more impressed about what she gave than the rich, because the rich was giving out of their wealth, but the widow was giving out of her poverty and gave everything, all she had to live on. Friends, there's a lot of misunderstandings about generosity. But do you know that we were given a new heart? That we should not operate according to the old heart, but the new heart. How many of you have been, you love going to restaurants, and the server comes and starts serving you, and you get the bill, and what do you do after? Not only that you pay, but you put a what? A tip. But do you know, my wife and I, at one time, we had a lunch with a couple. And so after lunch, and he said to me, and to Annalisa, we're paying, Pastor, we're paying, Sister Lisa. Oh, good, thank you so much. And so here's what happened. The bill came, and they paid the bill, and I've noticed that they never left a tip. And so I was so embarrassed. And so then we went towards the exit, and I said, hey, I'm going to the restroom. I'll see you guys later. And so we said our goodbyes. After, they left, I immediately went back to the table and left a tip. Tip. We do that, don't we? We're supposed to do that. If you're not giving a tip, that's not good. Because those guys, those servers are working for that. And they serve you, you got to honor them back. So tip. But here, now listen to me. You ready? So here's what we do. We give to God as if He is working for us. And we give Him a tip. We come to church to get fed. And we give Him a tip. And some of us, no tip at all. You get fed every Sunday. You give Him a tip? As if it's working for you? Wait, what? I'm going to pick up this $20. I just don't trust you. I don't trust you, Mitchell. Just kidding. But here's what we know, friends. God deserves the best. The Bible tells us so clear that we ought to give to God with a cheerful. That means joy. That when we give to God, just like the widow, can you just imagine the widow going to the temple and saying, I'm giving to God this last money I have, and I'm giving it to you. No, because if that was the case, Jesus would have said something. But she gave somehow, and Jesus said that's generosity. Why? Because she gave in faith with rejoicing, with honor. And here's our culture, because we are constantly consuming. We are consumers. Our country, you, me, we are consumers, whether you like it or not. Let us just be honest. You like to consume things. I like to consume things. And guess what? We live in a country that is so rich. And do you know that in comparison to billions of people, we are much richer if you own a dime? Now, I'm not going to apologize for living here and and really for God allowing me to live here. I'm not going to apologize. But I'm going to be grateful because I could have lived in Africa. I could have lived in Uganda. I could have lived in Southern Asia. And with nothing, $1 a week if I'm lucky. I was having a conversation. I had a meeting with a multimillionaire this week. He's trying to mentor me and my family. He's a great Christian brother. And his goal is to be able to give 90% and 90% to God's work and 10% to live on. That's his goal. A multimillionaire, a great brother. And you know what? He asked me and Nathan, why do you want to be wealthy? Now, if I ask you that question, why do you want to be wealthy? Why? Now, think about it. Why do you want to be wealthy? Why do you want to be wealthy? If Lee would ask you today, why do you want to be wealthy? What would you say? The old heart would say, well, because I want to buy a brand new car. I want to go to Hawaii. In fact, I'm going to buy a house in Hawaii. I'm going to golf every single day. Greg, I'm going to just have fun. We're going to go on vacation every week if we want to. I want to buy a multi-million-dollar house. I want this. I want a swimming pool. I want this. Why do you want to be wealthy? To be like the Wendells? Just to consume? And being blinded by money? Or do you see God? And do you see the needs of people? I simply answered Lee. I said, Lee, that's a great question. Because it allows me to check my heart. Why do I want to be wealthy? Lee, you know why? Because there's a call of God. There's a call of God to do His work. And it causes money to do His work. There's so many people that are dying every single day because of hunger. I live in a country that I have the greatest opportunity and the greatest privilege and the ability to give. Do you know why I want to be wealthy, Lee? Because I just heard Beth and David, the missionaries to India. They cried out to so many pastors, and they said, do you know in India that there are millions of children that are being sex trafficked? Babies that are being taken away and being sex trafficked. And I came with my wife to do something about it. You know why I want to be wealthy? Because there's work to be done. In 10 years, my wife and I will be called to missions. In 10 years. We'll be gone. But don't worry. The church will continue to exist whether Angelo is here or not. Because God has a plan for this church. God had a plan for Abraham, so somehow Isaac survived. God had a plan for Isaac, so somehow Jacob survived. God had a plan for Paul, that's why Silas and Timothy survived, and so on and so forth. I just want to let you know, this church will survive. Why? Because God has a beautiful plan for this church. So in 10 years, my wife and I will go to missions, to the mission field. Why do I want to be wealthy? Because the mission field is where the work of God is. If we're going to give, don't give God a tip. If you're going to give cheerfully. You know what that looks like? Cheerfully? Oh God, I thank you that I live in this country, that you've given me work, that you've given me paycheck after paycheck every week. You've given me Social Security. You've given me my retirement. You've given me life insurance. You've given me. And so for me to give back to you really is a joy. It's an honor. Man, I just love giving back to you, my God. I love it. Is it possible to have the attitude of the widow? It is possible. Because the rich, they're giving God a tip. And a lot of times when they give grudgingly. Look at this real quick. In Malachi chapter 1 verse 8, when you offer blind animals for sacrifice, blind animals, giving God blind animals, is that not wrong? When you sacrifice lame or diseased animals, is that not wrong? Try offering them to your governor. Now, let's go to our governor and start giving him. How many of you have a house with a garage? If I go there today, would you say that you have a lot of junk? And what do you want to do with your junk? Well, eventually, I want to clean it out, right? And bring the junk to Savers. Right? Right? And so, or keep your junk. And your house is full of junk. But somehow you know that I got to get rid of my junk. But do you know that there's a lot of garage Christians? A lot of garage Christians, a lot of junk, and they want to give God the junk. They come here every Sunday just giving God their junk. No. Look at Leviticus chapter 22. Do not bring anything with a defect. That's what God said. You do not bring anything with a defect, because it will not be accepted on your behalf. When you give to God, are you giving with a defect, with your junk or your tip? Or are you giving your very best to God? Are you obeying God with His commands to bring the whole tithes into the storehouse? Are you being generous, or are you blinded with these two metals? Looking at this money and you can't even see the work of God and the needs of people. Friends, God deserves our best. God deserves our best. Let me leave you with these words. There are two ways in which a Christian may view his money. Now listen. There are two ways in which a Christian may view his money. How much of my money shall I use for God? Or how much of God's money shall I use for myself? How much of my money shall I use for God? Or how much of God's money shall I use for myself? Friends, we could change today. Right now, you could change. I could change. Remember this, we are no longer have the old heart. We should not be operating according to the old heart. But we should be operating with our new heart. A new heart that honors God. A new heart that is faithful to God. A new heart that rejoices when He gives to God. A new heart when He helps people. A new heart of compassion and kindness. A new heart of generosity. A new heart that captures the heart of God. A new heart. Embrace that new heart. Because God has given you that, and God has given me that. You receive this today? Amen. Would you bow your heads and close your eyes for me, please? Now search your heart. Let's search our hearts today. I wonder if you have a misunderstanding of money and generosity. I wonder if you have the coins right there, just so close to your eyes that you can't see the work of God, that you can't see God as the owner, that you can't see the needs of people. Are those coins covering you, money covering you, your eyes? That you are just constantly consuming things like the Wendells? Where is your heart? Are you operating according to the old heart? Or are you operating according to the new heart? Which we should all be operating on. Where is your heart? So, Father, you know our hearts. You know it. We can't hide from you. We can't deny the wickedness, the misunderstandings, all this stuff that is before us. You know it. You know it if our heart is right. You know it when our heart is wrong. But I know that you are willing to forgive us, to give us an opportunity to take the right path of generosity. Generous to you, generous to the work of God, generous in every way, generous to people with our time and money and energy, generous in every way. And I know this for a fact, that we cannot be generous to you unless we obey you with what you have commanded us in bringing our tithes into the storehouse. We bring our tithes into the storehouse to honor you. And we don't stop there, but we continue with our generosity. I want to leave you with this. I'm so proud of our board. Raimi, Melissa, Raina, and Jake. So proud of them. The last 2 months, the church had experienced, our giving had experienced a dip, a big dip. When we met just last meeting, some of the things, we looked at the finances of the church, and we're like, for the last 2 months, our giving went down significantly. And then there were a lot of needs that were represented before us. Do you know I'm so proud of this man and Melissa, or women, Raina and Melissa? They looked at me and said, Pastor, we're going to continue to help. Just because our giving went down significantly doesn't mean that we stop being generous. We're going to be generous no matter what. Do you know that in the last few weeks that we've given and helped 10 different people? 10. We just gave 2 days ago. We gave 2. We helped 2 people. We're going to be generous. You know why? Because that's the new heart that we got to operate on. It's a new heart. And guess what? God started providing for the needs of the church. That's how God works. God is not limited just because you have a little bit. No. It's always the matter of the heart. It's always about the heart. And so I'm so proud. I just want to brag about your board, your leaders. So proud of them. That in the midst of, our giving went down because the old heart, let's not give right now. But that's not faith. Like I said last week, faith is this. Is when you don't have a lot or enough and you give anyway. That's faith. Faith is not when you have a lot and you give. That's not faith.